All right, welcome back to All Cars Reacts, y'all. I am John. It's time for a new reaction video, and this is the 2001 Toyota Prius. Now, I hear you groaning, but one of my viewers pointed out something. The first generation Prius is just about old enough now to be considered a classic. And that means that if you wanted, you could import one of the first ones from Japan once it hits 25 years old. With that mind-blowing fact in mind, I thought it would be a lot of fun to go back and look at this miserable little but trend-setting car. And I got a couple things to say about it, but let's get into it. And we'll see what Motorweek said about it when it was, oh my gosh, 25 years ago almost. As always, make yourself comfortable. Just you and me chatting. Grab a beverage of choice. We've got some leftover coffee here today. And let's get into it.
As gas prices go up, so does the interest in fuel-efficient automobiles. Now, I'm not saying that the day of the big SUV is over. Far from it. But a growing chorus of American drivers are looking at today's fuel and environmental concerns and deciding that the time to conserve is now. Well, one harmonious way to conserve is by driving a gasoline-electric hybrid like the Toyota Prius sedan. But can one little car really make such a big difference? Well, that depends on how and where you drive the 2001 Toyota Prius. Like gasoline-powered automobiles, different hybrid vehicles have different designs and different results. The Honda Insight, for instance, uses electric power to assist the full-time gasoline engine and is not designed to run on electric power alone. The Insight is thus more efficient at stable highway speeds. The Toyota Prius, however, which is designed to be most efficient in crowded urban traffic, uses either electric power, gasoline power, or a combination of the two as needed. Its drivetrain.
Okay, before they move on to the drivetrain, and Toyota had the right idea there. You know, I think that the as much as I'm a fan of Honda, I do think that the Insight, it was a sales failure. It just wasn't as efficient. I mean, you put two cars out there and here's the Prius, and it launched a whole new category. It ended up spawning a whole family of Prii, and the Insight kind of disappeared for a while. Styling-wise, it's an ugly little beast. We have to say here, this is the first generation Insight. Actually, this might be the second. No, this is the first generation Insight, but it's the second generation of the first generation. Okay. The Prius was introduced only in Japan initially, and then they kind of revised it, and that's the one that got sold to Europeans and to Americans and Asians and things like that. So it's not the very, very, very first one. So yes, there is a 1997 or 1998 Prius JDM only waiting for you to go claim it. But they're ugly little critters, and it's hard to believe that it was styled. They had a design contest, and this was the style from the California design studios. How ugly were the other ones? I mean, maybe you love it, I get it, but I don't like the grille. I don't like the character lines on the hood, the headlights. It's everything about this car. Just it screams. I want to say Beetle, except Beetles by Volkswagen are cute. This just screams roach to me. I'm not a fan of the first generation styling. In fact, I'm not really a fan of any of their styling until the last generation. Toyota, to me, struggles with styling. I think they make just some of the least attractive cars out there. They have for many, many years since they abandoned being boring. But for some reason, they came out with this. It's a fantastic, efficient powertrain, and they just didn't even try to make it attractive in my eyes.
Dubbed the Toyota Hybrid System, consists of a 1.5-liter dual overhead cam 4-cylinder engine. In the American market, it delivers 70 horsepower and 82 pound-feet of torque. This lightweight all-aluminum four-banger is equipped with variable valve timing and a vapor-reducing fuel tank to improve efficiency and reduce emissions. The other half of the drivetrain in our Prius begins with a new battery pack. It's 20% lighter and 40% smaller than in the Japanese market Prius we first tested. Peak power output is 25 kilowatts. which is used to drive a permanent magnet electric motor, which adds another 44 horsepower to the equation. But that pales in comparison to the astounding 258 pound-feet of torque delivered from 0 to 400 RPMs. Motive power, whether gas or electric, is fed to the front wheels through a continuously variable planetary gear automatic transmission. So what does all that mean when it's time to drive? Well, for a start, it means that the Toyota Prius will go from 0 to 60 in 12.2 seconds and run the quarter mile in 18.9 seconds at 75 miles per hour.
Okay, and if you've ever driven a Prius, not maybe the newer ones, but if you've ever driven some of those earlier Priuses, and I hope they talk about the interior here in a minute, they are super, super cool cars. I totally get why they were a hit. Later they were a hit because they are such cool technology packed. They were a little expensive for what you got, and the focus was on lightness. And for that reason, the earlier Priuses especially, the doors shut with a thunk. They felt Toyota there. They never felt unsafe, but the lack of substance in anything, the chassis and everything about it more like a Geo Metro than a Corolla, right? And in spite of that effort to keep it light and in efficiency, they were dogs, man. For all the coolness in the world about the powertrain, and I have absolutely no problem with buying a powertrain and buying a hybrid to do my fair share to drive as efficient a car as possible. I have no problem with that. I'm not going to rub somebody's nose in it and walk around being self-righteous about it, but I have no problem making that kind of decision until the moment you're trying to make a turn into traffic and you need to accelerate. Oh, it's scary how slow these things were. I'd rather drive a 1984 Dodge Colt.
Hardly a speed demon, but that's hardly the point. The point of the Prius is, as we said before, high fuel economy and urban driving. As a result, the EPA fuel economy ratings are 52 city and 45 highway. Our usual test loop, which mixes city and highway driving, yielded a steady 40 miles per gallon. Yes, a diesel Golf is comparable, but that's not the point either. Progress is. Driving progress in the Prius can be an unusual experience as the Toyota hybrid system shifts seamlessly between gas and almost silent electric power. Gas power is used until the batteries are fully charged. The system then shifts to electric power until battery levels drop and the gas engine kicks back in. Pull to a stop and the gas engine shuts down to save fuel. The car then pulls away in electric mode, switching the gas engine back on when more power is needed. Even stopping the Prius helps save fuel. The ABS-equipped front disc rear drum brakes feature a regenerative charging system that makes power for the batteries every time that you touch the brakes. Braking power, however, could be better, with stops from 60 averaging a longish 132 feet. Handling is pretty much what you expect from a compact Toyota sedan. There's not a lot of sporty feel, but grip is good and we sailed through without difficulty. Inside, the Prius offers a big 88.6 cubic feet of passenger space. The layout is slick with the digital gauges and prominent charging system stereo display located high in the center dash. Seating is a pair of supportive buckets up front and a rear bench with plenty of headroom, but a need for a few more inches of legroom. While the trunk is a good 11.8 cubic feet. The price is also...
Okay, before they go on, I don't have a big problem with the interior. I mean, I want to be critical of this car and some of the decisions they've made, because they made something that is super advanced, but then they put this, to me, to my eyes, I feel very strongly, an incredibly dorky body around it. Then they have this digital dash, and they make some really strong decisions like putting the gear selector up here. But then it ends up being not sporty at all, but also not quite youthful. They really did focus on a very core. They must have identified the person they were going for very closely. This core person who wants the technology, they want the coolness, but they don't care at all about handling and about styling or about any sense of any zest in the car. I'm not looking for an Acura NSX here, but something with any passion at all. And even what they kept saying here during this video, right? That's not what it's about. You know, a diesel could do it. Well, diesel's not going to be as clean out the tailpipe. And, well, that's not the point. The point was to show off the technology. And that something else isn't the point. I don't know. I've actually thought many times about a Prius, basically every time a new generation comes out. And I like them. And I think if I owned one, I'd be very happy with it. But the closer I get to trying to make that decision, the more I pull back from it. That being self-righteous about how little fuel I'm using isn't worth it. I don't know. And the braking was okay. It wasn't great. It wasn't horrible. It was fine. Everything about this car is just, it's fine. It's so dull.
Also reasonable. $20,475 will put you in the most advanced gas-sipping car yet. But be prepared to wait for it, since Toyota dealers report a substantial backlog of orders. With only about 12,000 cars being imported this year, no one expects the 2001 Toyota Prius to save the planet. But if you're an American driver whose guilty conscience says the time to conserve fossil fuels is now, the Prius will certainly make you feel better. More importantly, the Prius, along with the Honda Insight, proved that hybrids are viable now, so much so that hybrid SUVs are just around the corner. So while the Toyota Prius isn't perfect, it's a perfectly acceptable first step towards making other motorists green with envy.
Well, and that was interesting because he started with they're not suggesting the big SUVs are going away, and well, 25 years ago he nailed that, and that hybrid SUVs are around the corner. Well, they nailed that too, and here we are. Toyota is still the, if not one of the leaders in the hybrid world. I don't know. That was okay. Yeah, I'm certainly, of all the things I could go to Japan for and import once they were 25 years old, the Prius would not have even made the list. I wouldn't have even considered it. But the first generation being sold only in Japan, then this one came here with a lighter and bigger battery, and then it was the next generation that it really became a hit. They redesigned it and made it a little bit bigger, added some of that legroom that they were complaining about, and it took off, right? And everyone, admittedly, has been better than the previous generation, and everyone, to my eyes, has looked slightly better than the previous one. The current one looks really good, and I could get excited about it. I could get super excited about it, except they sit so low. And so going back to what I was just saying about how they must have a very clear vision of what they want, of who their customer is, and that they don't seem to be hitting anything that really resonates with me. A compact sedan, check. Hybrid, check. Great fuel economy, check. You know, somewhat modestly reasonable price, check. But then you go sit in the new Prius, and I found its interior to be exceptionally cheap, and it sat really low, like fall into it kind of low. So for a car that really should be able to appeal to as many people as possible, I would think that hip point would be up a little more. And it's not. I think they're limiting themselves, or they're trying to push people who are interested in hybrids into something more like a Corolla Cross so they can step into the car. I don't know. You know, first generation here in America, pretty cool. Hard to believe it's been 25 years. And the technology is so cool. I mean, Toyota really was way ahead of the curve on this one. It's one of the clearest examples of Toyota and their skunk works dropping something on the market that was absolutely ready for it, and all the rest of the automakers looking at each other like, what the heck just happened? How did Ford and GM, with all their innovation, not see this coming and not have something to respond with? And in fact, Toyota licensed their technology to Ford, as I recall, and that's where many of the Ford hybrids came from, like the C-Max and the Fusion. So I may be a little off on that detail, but cool car, great. I have no desire to have one. But the later Priuses, I could be tempted, because I've said it before, I drive my Accord. I love getting 40 miles to the gallon, nearly 40 miles to the gallon on the interstate. Getting high gas mileage is one of those things that makes me really happy. So I think I'd like a Prius. But who wants to drive one on a daily basis? Thanks for being here, y'all.